Hello, this is Kerry Ardak from Imp Stocks giving you news in the TLT. By the way, I did take this video on Friday, January 10, 2025. The date is Friday, January 10, 2025, and it should be on the screen here. But this is a report on what and hashtag 039's really going on in this market. And I and hashtag 039 am just going over some old ground. Just to be clear, we are still in a longer-term bear market in the TLT that has been going on for more than 4 years. To put it another way, interest rates have been going up steadily over the same time period. It and hashtag 039's important to remember that the prices of any bond product in the TLT, which is an ETF and can be traded, are inversely related to interest rates. Since this market has been going down for 4 years, it and hashtag 039's clear that the interest rate market has been one of rates going up. There was clearly a speeding up. In this case, it was from November 21 to October 22. You may also remember that happened at the same time as a major bear market, a 1-year bear market in the stock market. In any case, 98.67, which is losing 34 cents a week, is our long-term resistance limit. Below that, the long-term outlook for the TLT remains bearish, meaning lower rates, or higher rates, as long as things stay below 98.67. Now, inside this, and I and hashtag 039 am going to zoom in for a moment. That line with the number 98.67 is right here. For the record, this is a chart for the week beginning Monday, January 13th. These are the numbers for the following week. Just so you know, in October, you may remember that we had a sell signal below this rising channel bottom. This meant that we were no longer trying this range of support levels. We didn't and hashtag 039 test the lower level, 84.22, but we did close below 88.41 a few weeks ago. That and hashtag 039's been holding for a couple of weeks now, and because it settled below 88.41, I and hashtag 039 say you could expect 84.22 in about 2 or 3 weeks. The level 84.22 is a strong support. It and hashtag 039's likely to stay that way through the first quarter. In other words, up to February, or about 3 to 5 months, back up to 98.67. We could fill this gap out until at least the middle of 25. By the middle of 25, it gets a lot smaller. So, either the market will close below 8,422, which would mean that the longer-term trend is to go down, or it might close above 9,867 sometime in the next 3 to 5 months, which would mean that the longer-term trend is to go up. At this point, 84.22 is the bumper. That being said, if we close below it and hashtag 039's a strong sign to sell for the rest of the year. I and hashtag 039 am going to keep going through the charts. There is also a falling channel bottom that goes back to the September high. I and hashtag 039 am going to zoom in on this one. At 83.38, price has been falling by 62 cents a week for 5 months. For the next few weeks, you should keep this in mind. I call it the end quote, slippage factor, end quote, less than 84.22. In other words, we could break 84.22, but we won and hashtag 039 see that right now. But in the next week or two, we could test it, we should test it, and we could break it during intro week, tag 83.38. As long as we end the week at 84.22 or higher, the market will be steady and in a bottom-picking zone that will allow it to return to 98.67 within 3 to 5 months. If we do close below this area between 83.38 and 84.22, and I and hashtag 039 am zooming out again, I think this long-term channel bottom at 49.36 is a clear-cut goal. I don and hashtag 039 know if I should use the word explicit, attainable, possible, or objective. You can and hashtag 039 rule out this option, do you? And this would be a strong sign to sell. We can take a step back from this picture to show you what has happened in the past. It and hashtag 039's the 1980s. The TLT is the lowest it has ever been. However, remember that the TLT began in September 2002 and hit a low point of 8,051 in May 2004. So it doesn't and hashtag 039 T have the same 40 to 50-year background as the 30-year US Treasury bond. I and hashtag 039 am also going to show that. First, though, I and hashtag 039 am going to make this a monthly chart. Going all the way back to May 2004, you can see this channel and hashtag 039's bottom right here. And that and hashtag 039's pretty much been redrew here, at 84.22. We think that 49.36 will happen if we close below 84.22. I do believe it and hashtag 039's possible. What does this mean? This means that interest rates will rise much faster. I might be wrong now. In fact, I hope I and hashtag 039 am wrong. Let and hashtag 039 SC 80.51. There doesn't and hashtag 039 T seem to be much point to that. May 2004, right now I and hashtag 039 am going to show you the monthly chart for 30-year government bonds for May 2004. This also shows what and hashtag 039's possible in the long run. These are mostly the same shapes that are drawn on the 30-year government bond, which is a long bond. Right now, 109.13 is the base for that. It would be the same as the TLT closing below 84.22 if we close below it. The long bond will then send out its own long-term sell signal, with a 5-year channel bottom at 81.08 on January 25th. This is a chart for each month. Yes, you can go all the way back to September 1981, when we first met. The top charts. Ignoring the fear and worry about what that could mean for the economy, I and hashtag 039 am going to say that yes, if you close below a rising channel bottom at the bottom of a move, you have trend resumption. In this case, it would be bear trend resumption. As a long-term goal for the 30-year bond, I would point to 8,108 if we closed below 109.13 at the end of any week or month. Let and hashtag 039's look at this chart again. This is your TLT. I and hashtag 039 am going to change my mind and show you the weekly chart again. And this is the real point of no return. Now, this could very well be true. This will work for the first 3 months. As I said before, this is where we can end. Chart is wrong. Please wait. We can go back up to, I and hashtag 039, am going to say it again, the top 90s. That and hashtag 039's very likely to happen. It and hashtag 039's also possible with the 30-year Treasury bond. One more thing I and hashtag 039 do like to say is this. This shows that the US dollar and what and hashtag 039's going on in the bond market are not related. That makes a lot of sense, right? At the moment, US interest rates are still a bit higher than those in the rest of Western Europe, or the G7, so it makes sense that we draw money from other countries. And economies are based on a lot of different things. That and hashtag 039's not something I want to talk about. But I think that the interest rate situation is one of the most important factors. Interest rates are still going up, but the US dollar index broke out last month, December, finishing above this important channel top. This is a monthly chart. That was a week or a week and a half ago. And it does point to a test of this high area again. I think I could type that out. It was September 22nd, 114.77 years ago, which is a few. 2.5 years ago, to be exact. I also think that this upper area will probably be tried again. You have an extreme channel top and a long term, like, how long is this channel? There is a 26 to 27 year channel top here that we tried in 22. It held well, and we slipped away. I and hashtag 039 am not sure if you remember this movie. Sure. Not only have I been doing regular updates on the US dollar index, but Stocks has also been doing this kind of research for a while now. But with the dollar index, the question I have is, However, an early sign of what we think might happen in the TLT is that it might close below 84.22 on the US dollar. I should say that the index itself has already hinted at this possibility. The US dollar measure shows that trade will likely stay high. This is a chart for each month. What is this then? The move could take 3 to 5 months. It could also go on for a long time after 25. The move could take 5 to 8 months. This area thinks it will happen by the middle of the year or early in the third quarter. It could happen sooner, though, based on what and hashtag 039's going on in the world and on the ground. Like crude oil and such. I could look at a bunch of commodity charts. Tariffs are, of course, the question that everyone is thinking about. Are these tariffs, 20%, 50%, or 100%, really going to be put in place by the US against Mexico, our biggest trade partner, and Canada? And if the answer is yes, I think this chart actually backs that up, since our bigger trade partners are devaluing their currencies to make up some of the difference in the high tariff. That and hashtag 039's it. That should pretty much do it. I Don and hashtag 039t want to talk about the important things. Like business. I and hashtag 039 am going to bring you back to this chart to show you how this works. Don and hashtag 039t leave you with that chart. I and hashtag 039 am leaving you with this one, which is the best one for the week. 83.38 to 84.22, which will be our long-term support level if we fall below it. Over the long term, this market is expected to keep going down. Also, yes, it can. It could break below the low point in May 2004 in the TLT. Once more, that and hashtag 039's not a very important low. That and hashtag 039's how low the US Treasury bond has been since May 2004. You can see that prices have changed a lot below that, all the way down to 50.09 in September 1981. Yes, I Don and hashtag 039t think the prime rate will be 22%. I believe they can go even higher, though. That is all I have to say about it. I and hashtag 039d like to add that if we close below 109.13. If the long bond closes below 109.13 and the TLT closes below 84.22 at the end of a week or month. That and hashtag 039's all I have. Wow, it and hashtag 039's already 11 minutes. That is all I have to say about it. I and hashtag 039'll be back in a few weeks or a month or two with new information. If we can get that closing price below 84.22, I and hashtag 039'll let you know. Have a great day.